we want the children reunified with their fathers. If the fathers are getting deported, they do not want to be deported without the children because that becomes a nightmare. There was a case of a Central American woman who lost her child. She fought for 10 years because her child was placed into foster care and adopted by a white family here.
Amy Maldonado is an immigration attorney who is suing the Trump administration on behalf of two Brazilian boys. They were separated from their fathers at the border in May and have not yet been reunited. The families were picked up by border officers after illegally crossing into the US. One family first tried to seek asylum at an official port of entry, but was told that it was closed, according to court documents.
These kids have been run all over the country. They've seen all these different people, and the 9-year-old in particular is not doing very well emotionally.
The lawsuit alleges officials at a border facility told the fathers that they would be separated from their children for only a few days, but the men are now detained in Mexico and Texas while their children have been transferred to a Chicago shelter. The two families said they are seeking asylum in the US because of serious threats from human and drug traffickers back in Brazil.
Why do you argue that the way these two boys were separated from their fathers was illegal?
They're supposed to be making an individualized determination about where they should be placed on a case-by-case basis. That is not happening at all. What's happening is CBP, detains somebody. Within 2 days, their kid is taken away from them. No explanation. One of the children was lied to by the CBP officer, Customs and Border Protection. He was told that he would be back in a few hours, and he was taken 1,000 miles away.
The lawsuit claims that the way the government separated thousands of families after they crossed into the US illegally violates a 1997 court decision known as the Flores Settlement Agreement. It requires authorities to treat migrant children with dignity, respect, and special concern for their particular vulnerability as minors, and only detain them under the least restrictive setting appropriate. That was violated by the White House, the lawsuit argues, because separating children from their parents for extended periods caused them unnecessary trauma. The US Department of Homeland Security declined to comment on the pending litigation. The Flores Agreement also requires the government to provide detained children contact with family members. But Maldonado says the two Brazilian boys spent weeks without speaking with their fathers. The government said in a recent fact sheet that every effort is made to ensure minors are able to communicate with their parent or guardian at least twice per week. The fact sheet also says that the government knows the location of all children in its custody and is working to reunite them with their families.
Despite the executive order, in the very specific case of those two families you are representing, you haven't seen the government stepping in and being helpful.
Correct. I spoke to the Assistant U.S. Attorney this morning, and I asked him to give me an assurance that ICE would not deport the father without the child, and he said, absolutely not. I'm not giving you any assurance of that.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions was going to ask a California federal judge to look at the Flores settlement and see if there is any way to override it so that families can be held together indefinitely.
They're basically going back and saying, hey judge, we want to get rid of Flores so we can indefinitely detain children, when the whole point of Flores, or one of them, was that children cannot be indefinitely detained. So there is no shortage of lawyers who are willing to represent the children. So we've been sharing our complaint with attorneys all over the country and encouraging people to file lawsuits against the government.
Since President Donald Trump announced the end of the separation practice, the White House says it has reunited 522 children migrants who had been separated from their parents. However, these children had not yet been transferred to shelters run by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, where more than 2,000 separated children remain. The government says it has a well-coordinated plan to reunite those children with their guardians too. That includes a dedicated detention center in San Antonio that will help detained parents find their children before being deported. Since I interviewed Maldonado, a federal judge ordered the White House to stop separating migrant families at the border and to reunite those already separated within 30 days.